Hello and welcome to the DeVance channel. We're glad you're able to make it with us today. We wanted to kind of get some things started today with introducing you to who we are. My name's Matt DeVance, this is my wife Dana DeVance, and we kind of want to just start a channel where we can go over products that we carry, and sometimes we'll go over products that we don't carry, but just get some information out there to you, the consumer, on some of our thoughts and highlights and just fun stuff like that. Some of our videos that we'll do will probably be more on the critical side. Some of them will do more on the casual side, just relaxed. Today what we wanted to do was one that was more casual, more relaxed, just more easygoing, and talk about some experiences and one of our favorite speaker brands that we carry, Sonus Faber. And so with Sonus Faber, we've been dealers for Sonus Faber now for probably about 15 years. And we recently opened a new showroom here in Carrollton, Texas. We'd love to have you come by and take a look, and you can see and listen to everything that we're going to be talking about. But I wanted to do a video kind of based upon good, better, best, if you will, with Sonus Faber. And these aren't necessarily in the, they're best of the Sonus Fabers, but they're pretty close. So what we're going to be talking about today is the Sonus Faber Olympicanova 5s, the Sonus Faber Amatis, and the Sonus Faber ilcremoneses. So kind of a good, better, best in the middle of the range, and the differences that you're going to hear between, or at least what we hear between the three. And we're using Macintosh electronics on them. We have the Macintosh 1.25 kW amplifier, so 1200 watts on the speakers, so we can make them do anything we want them to do with a Macintosh preamp, Macintosh turntable, and Lumen streamer. So just kind of a quick little rundown of what we have on it, and we're using Nordost cabling. So that being said, we want to kind of get into some of our listening and what we thought. And like I said, this we want it to be more, Dana and I just sat down and did some casual listening. We didn't do critical listening. And when I say casual listening, it's at the end of a Monday, you want to just sit down, listen to some of your favorite music, just chill out a little bit, maybe have your favorite beverage, and just do some listening that will relax you. Not necessarily Sunday afternoon, I got a couple extra hours that I'm just going to do some critical listening. Maybe I'm going to tweak my speakers a little more. Maybe I'm going to play with some different cables, things like that, where it's a little bit more intense. My opinion is more often than not, a lot of people do more of a casual, relaxed listening, as opposed to I'm going to sit down for 2 hours, close the door, nobody bother me, intense listening for every minute detail, and maybe tweaking your speakers a little bit and all that goes along with that. We'll have something like that in the future, but this one we wanted to start off with just some casual listening. Like I said, we have the Olympica 5s, which is their best speaker in the Olympica line. You step up in the Homage line and we have the Amatis, which is the best in the Homage line. And you step up in the reference line and we have the ilcremoneses, which is actually the entry speaker in the reference line. So those are the three that we kind of listened to and just went back and forth on in a casual environment. And one of the things I like about having Dana be part of this, not only just to get her opinions, but as we all know, a lot of times women have better hearing than men, especially as we age.
That's debatable for me, but
when we get older, our hearing kind of starts going, especially on the higher frequencies for men, but women can tend to hear those higher frequencies much better. So there's a lot of times when I'm doing some listening and I want to know if I heard something or maybe I didn't hear something, I'll ask Dana to come in and sit down and say, what did you hear? Did you hear this? How does this sound? And get her opinion, because she might hear something or experience something that I haven't experienced or I didn't hear.
Yeah, and a lot of times if I'm listening critically, I'll close my eyes and really kind of pay attention to all the different details, and you hear a lot of what's going on in the room as well. So this time I did not close my eyes because I want to point out the obvious. These are gorgeous speakers. All three of them are gorgeous. With Sonus Faber, you really can't go wrong in the aesthetic department. But that being said, other than that, we just sat down and kind of listened to the same song on all three speakers and, sort of flipped back and forth and really enjoyed the experience from a casual listening standpoint.
Yeah, and one of our favorite bands is Tool. We've gone to many Tool concerts and seen them live over and over, and we've probably seen, how many concerts do you think we've gone to over the last 5 or 10 years? At 150, 200 concerts?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
at least.
A lot, yeah.
So that's one of our favorite things that we do as a couple is we like going to live concerts, live shows, whether it's an intimate show or a big national, like Metallica that can pack a huge stadium. We like it all. And so we really get a feel for what a live show sounds like. And I think Tool, out of the majority of the bands that we see, Tool probably has the best sound live, almost better than any other band we've seen. They really do a good job making their live sound like they're recorded. We know their music inside and out, and I think that's very important when you're going to sit down and do some listening, is to really know your music. So when you change from speaker to speaker, or you change something in your system, maybe it's a cable or an amplifier or some kind of tweaky device that you're using, you're so familiar with that song or tracks or album that you'll be able to notice those little nuances. And that's kind of for us why we chose Tool, is because we've listened to them so much.
Yeah.
And we really know their music inside and out. So
yeah.
When we were doing kind of our listening, what was the experience that you had going from the Olympicanovas to the Amatis to the ilcremoneses? So it's a pretty big step. You're going from right now at retail on the Novas is around 18,000 to 32.5 up to 55. So quite a difference in price point as you step up. What was your experience?
A couple of different things stood out to me. So we listened first to the ilcremoneses, and the sound was just very full. It was like the sound stage was just wide and sort of encompassing of my position in the room. The Olympicanovas then were next, and then the Amatis after that. And so one of the biggest things I noticed from the ilcremoneses to the others was the vocals, and on the particular song we were listening to, there's a lot of echo, which is intentional in the song. It's part of the song. The echo felt wider and a little deeper, like it was live. The Olympicanovas versus the Amatis, I noticed the Amatis had kind of that same effect with just a deeper, more vast soundstage with the bass notes compared to the Novas. Everything sounds amazing, believe me. You can't go wrong with any of the three, but you definitely have a wider and more detailed soundstage with the ilcremoneses from the top.
So, I've been in the industry just over 30 years, and one of the things that I've experienced when you're going through a lot of these speakers is when you get the bass right, the bass can really make a difference on your mid-range and your high frequencies. It can really dial them in and really bring them into focus if your foundation is done properly. And as we step up from the Olympicanovas to the Amatis to the ilcremoneses, that bass in each one just keeps getting tweaked a little bit more and a little bit more, and it then the resolution of the mid-range and the higher frequencies really starts kind of getting dialed in, almost like it's a veil getting lifted off the mid-range and speaker as you go up.
Yeah, and I did notice, I'm a huge fan of all of the musicians in Tool, and they each have their ways of standing out. Prior to this listening session, where I was paying a little more attention, to certain parts of the song, the bass player came really full forward when we went from the Olympicanovas to the Amatis and then to the ilcremoneses. I felt a lot more of the bass, as far as the bass guitar goes, increasing in depth and just a little bit better pops, I guess. with the bass guitar, that is. And then on the drums, of course, you know, there's a lot of different percussions in Tool. He uses all kinds of instruments to create the beat, and you hear a lot more of that from the amatis to the ilcremoneses. Yeah, it's just really intense to hear it. I wish we had a video where we could see the musicians, and then I'm sure even more of that you would pick up just by seeing what they're doing and seeing the different instruments that, or the different percussion pieces that Danny is using, you know, during the song. But it's really interesting because you definitely hear some differences, and the cable's the same. You know, we switched the Nordost over from each one to the next, and obviously the equipment is the same throughout. So we just literally, the one deviation was the actual speaker itself.
One thing to note, the Olympicanova is a three-way speaker. And when you go up into the amatis and the ilcremoneses, you then go to a 3.5-way. And what that means is on the amatis and the ilcremoneses, there's another crossover in there. From the mid-range, they now have a mid-bass, and then mid-bass to bass. Whereas in the Sonus Faber Olympicanovas, you just have a three-way, so there's only two crossovers, and that's going to be from the tweeter to the mid-range and from the mid-range to the bass. So I noticed on the Olympicanovas, the bass seemed to be more predominant, almost louder, but it wasn't as focused and as detailed. When you go into the amatis, then the bass seemed to really get tight. The mid-bass got a little tighter. Everything just sounded more like the artist intended, I think. The bass drum and the bass guitar weren't necessarily muddled together, where on the Olympicanovas, it was harder to define the two. And then when you got into the ilcremoneses, it really, you know, you really had that separation from the bass to the bass drum. So.
And speaking of that, it seems like with the ilcremonese and the, did you say it's a 10-inch woofer on the back or an 8-inch woofer?
They're 2 8-inch woofers.
Two 8-inch woofers on the back of the speaker.
Yeah.
And the way we have them placed in our room, you know, they're off the corner just enough to be appropriately placed in the room. But I think you get that depth of the bass and the lower frequencies when the ilcremoneses, you know, projecting towards the back and then coming back out into the room in a 2-channel setup.
Yeah.
So you definitely feel that. I don't know. It's a bigger bass for sure.
And with the ilcremoneses, with where those woofers are placed, you can actually take the speakers and reverse them, depending on if you're getting too much bass or not enough bass. If your room is real kind of boomy and really produces a lot of bass, then you might want to swap them to where the woofers are facing inward and they're not necessarily using the corner to load the room with bass. If your room doesn't have that and is really kind of lack of bass, then have them to where the woofers are facing out so that it uses the corner of the room and the walls to really kind of load the room to get a little bit better bass response. So it made a big difference.
So if we're talking about holding all things constant, right? So we have our room, our 2-channel room, which is 18 by 23 in dimension. And we're choosing between the Olympicanova 5s or the amatis or the ilcremoneses. What would you say would be the reason why you would choose one or the other?
It depends a lot on what you're expecting the speaker to do and the power you're going to provide it. You know, if you're going to listen to rock and roll all the time, then probably the Olympicanovas are going to give you what you want because they have really good bass. They have lots of bass. You can play them loud. And then if you start ranging out and saying, I really want to have more vocals and I really want to pay attention to vocals and I want to get more detailed and I want to do classical listening and so on and so forth, then I think that's when you're going to start stepping into the amatis and the ilcremoneses because they're going to be more refined and be able to really kind of show all the different instruments and give you that sound stage that you're looking for when you're doing some listening like that.
So you're trying to say my rock and roll isn't refined?
It can be. if it's recorded properly. And that's the thing too to keep in mind. Most speakers, when you start getting this level, I've had clients over the years that think I'm spending more money on a speaker, it should make my music sound better. And that's not necessarily the case. It's going to reveal how the music was recorded. So if it was recorded pretty crappy, then it's not going to sound good. It's going to sound crappy, just like it was recorded.
Just like it was intended.
Yeah, and some music that really is that way is 80s music. If you go and play some 80s music, when they were recording the music in the 80s, they didn't do a very good job of recording that. It's really lackluster on bass. The mid-range can kind of be all over the place. And that's why you see a lot of the 80s music, when you're going out and you're looking for it, they have remastered versions. And those remastered versions, they try to go in there and clean it up and make it sound better than what the original sounded like. Give it a little bit better bass boost and help the mid-range out and things like that. But so it does, your music choices really can affect your listening experience. I love listening to vinyl. You know, we've been growing our vinyl collection, and there's a massive difference when we'll put on an album as opposed to streaming it or even playing the CD. It's so much more enjoyable, and it seems more live to me when we do that. Depending on any speaker that we're choosing, we feel that way. So.
Yeah, we had a fun little exercise the other day where we invited all of our employees to talk about their favorite album. If they were stranded on a deserted island somewhere with a turntable and a pair of good speakers, what record would they like to listen to? And everybody had a really unique choice. You know, everybody's music tastes are so different, and that's a pretty good representation, I think, of the population in general. Everybody's music choices are different. And so what we did is we got the album, we pulled the album from our collection, if we had it, the one that they chose, and then we listened to the album, you know, chose a song, listened to a few segments of the song, and then we switched over to streaming or vice versa to see if the person listening could tell the difference. And everybody could tell the difference, and almost everybody chose the vinyl as far as what they would have preferred to listen to versus streaming. There was one person that chose the streaming, and I think that was more of an electronica kind of band, and so it kind of makes sense that the streaming would be a little more precise versus the vinyl, where you're going to get the pops and the cracks and the warmness of the analog music. But it's definitely fun, and I think to each their own, right, on music selections and what people like to listen to and what people hear. You know, is very much going to be individual.
Yeah, I think, you know, vinyl is definitely a lot more of an experience than streaming. Streaming is your convenience. You can choose through stuff pretty quick, and as long as I've been doing this, a lot of audiophiles, quote unquote, when they go in to listen to something, we're playing maybe 30 seconds of a track. Right, we'll play that track, and we have certain things we want to listen for, and then we're jumping to another track. And we're listening to certain things in there, and we're jumping to another track, and it's just, I got to get in all these things and see if I hear these things. Whereas vinyl kind of makes you slow down a little bit, and it says, hey, take it easy. You're going to listen to this whole song. You're not going to just listen to 30 seconds of the song. You're going to listen to the whole song. I mean, you can go up there and do it, but typically you're not going to do that. You're going to play it and sit down and enjoy it, and it makes you slow down, and I like that about vinyl. I like that it makes you more involved. It makes you take it easy. It makes you kind of enjoy what you spent your money on, and the whole premise of why you spent your money is for that enjoyment. If you get into that critical mode all the time, it can almost drive you crazy, where you're trying to get it perfect, and there's no perfect system out there. I don't care what anybody says. My opinion is there's no perfect system, and you'll always be chasing that. If you think that there is a perfect system, that you'll drive yourself crazy chasing it, because you're always going to think there's something else that can be done that will get you there. And so, you know, in these three speakers, to your point, you're asking which ones to go with. They're all pretty expensive. I mean, starting off at $18,000 a pair is not a cheap speaker system to get into, and then you look at everything you need to power them and that goes along with them. You're not going to go wrong with them, like you said, but we wanted just to have a introductory video to them to let you know kind of what we heard when we went from one to the other, and what you get for the money as you step up. Obviously, everybody hears differently. Everybody has their own preferences, and you can get 100 people in here and listen to the 3 speakers all the time, and you'll get 100 different, choices. So the best thing you can do is come in and listen. But even then, keep in mind that when you get them into your own environment, they're still going to sound different once you get them into your environment, because it's not the environment that a shop's created. And a shop like ours, we've tried to create and had the availability to create a room that's dedicated for that. And a lot of homes, you got your windows, and we were talking earlier, if you have a big room that now so many of these spaces are just, we want everything in one space. We want our kitchen, we want our dining room, we want our family room, we want everything in one huge room. And when you start doing that, it's hard to get the perfect sound out of that. It's not impossible, but it makes it a lot more challenging.
We've enjoyed talking with you guys and appreciate the opportunity to have an audience with you, and love to talk about a casual listening experience and what the average user is going to hear versus an audiophile.
We're hopeful to continue making videos like this, and I think what our focus wants to be on these videos is more of the average consumer that wants a nice system, that wants something that's special, but not necessarily considering themselves quote unquote an audiophile. Do we have products that an audiophile can enjoy? Sure. And I think there's a lot of videos out there that really focus on that. But I think we want to have our focus more on, we want good quality, we want good sound, we want to be able to sit down and enjoy, but we also want somebody that can point us in the right direction and let us know what we're going to get for our money. If we spend $18,000, or maybe I want to spend $32,000, what is that going to do for me? And what differences are those going to make if I decide I want to go that route? So we'll do more. You can see we got a lot of neat stuff behind us too that we'll be going over, but our focus really is just let you know about us and how we like to operate and what we like to do. And so as we continue forward, then you'll get to know us a little bit better. And but our goal is just to keep it casual, keep it fun. If you have any kind of requests that you would like us to go over, please put those in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We're just getting started, so we don't really have any set agenda yet. We're playing it by ear and seeing how it goes, so feel free to tell us what you want and we'll try to accommodate.
Yeah, one of the cool things is in our showroom here in Carrollton, Texas, we'd love to invite you to come and visit us. And we do have a plethora of brands to choose from, and we do have quite a bit of, I think, an exciting mix here on the showroom floor that we can demonstrate versus, equipment versus speakers versus cables. We kind of have the full gamut. So if you have something that you want to come and listen to, just give us a call and let us know, and we'll set something up. We've got a great listening room in here in our 2-channel room. And then we have some places throughout the showroom that are really meant more to mimic someone's home. So we've got a couple of different environments to put some speakers in and some equipment and take a listen and see what you think.
Until next time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to it. We'll talk to you soon.